Hello there, you're watching Epicenter on CNN News 18. I'm Maha Siddiqui. India has just gone through a brutal second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. It jolted the healthcare system with the overwhelming number of cases. There was a scramble for treatment and survival with a vast population unvaccinated and having no protection from the virus. This even as many richer countries continued to not just vaccinate faster and many more of their population, but also have surplus vaccines as they sat on pre-ordered jabs. Has the glaring inequity of vaccination led to the virus being able to attack and mutate in the more vulnerable populations? So how crucial is vaccine equity, and how can multilateral organizations step up at this hour of crisis? Joining us on top of the show is Abdullah Shahid, the President-elect of the UN General Assembly. Many thanks for speaking with us. I understand you're busy, but despite that, you've taken time out for us. First of all, you've said that managing the COVID-19 pandemic would be your first priority as UNGA president. Since we are already seeing a rich world, developing world divide, how will you ensure vaccine equity?
Well, COVID-19 will dominate the work of the General Assembly as well as any other international organization for the next several years, because the impact of COVID-19 has been so devastating on all our economies and social life, as well as the health infrastructure. We have had death, despair, and devastation of our entire systems because of COVID-19. But in the middle of it, we have been able to get a vaccine. Outstanding work by the scientific community. And that has given us hope. But that hope needs to be translated into reality with the vaccine rollout in equal, on parity with the developed and developing countries. It is said that while 1 in every 5 people in the richer countries are vaccinated, the figure is 1 in every 500 rest of the world. I've been speaking to many of the African ambassadors here, and in some of the countries, less than 2% have been have to access to vaccine. The United Nations must be a forum, must be a platform where we can all come together. The producers, the manufacturers, and the membership, the countries should come together to give a message of hope, charter, a way forward, and that is what I intend to do.
Abdullah Shahid, but many believe that multilateral organizations like the United Nations, like the World Health Organization, have failed in the biggest once-in-a-century test in mitigating the crisis brought upon us due to the pandemic. Do you think it's time for a full overhaul of multilateral organizations?
The role that multilateral organizations have been able to play since they were established 75 years ago, the United Nations was established, we would know the important role that it has played only if this organization was not there. I think it is unfair to say that the organization and the multilateral system has failed. However, the shortcomings are there, and I think collectively the international community must address these shortcomings to make it meet the expectations of the people.
Okay. Also, the G7 countries, Abdullah Shahid, have most recently given a call for a fresh probe into the origins of the coronavirus. What role can the UN play in seeking more transparency from China?
Well, these questions are to be answered by the membership. The President of the General Assembly will not be able to comment on such issues because the President of the General Assembly has to abide by a code of ethics, which has as its number 1 item the issue of not taking sides. impartial impartiality is a key to being the president of the General Assembly. And I think it should be left to the membership to decide on how they wish to proceed on these issues.
Abdullah Shahid, many thanks for speaking with CNN News 18. Let me now immediately go across to our guests who are joining us on the show as well. Ashutosh Garg, former board member, Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance founder of Guardian Pharmacy. Dr. Chandrakant Leheria, epidemiologist and public health specialist who recently authored the book Till We Win, India's Fight Against COVID-19 Pandemic. And Dr. Prabhat Jha, epidemiologist at the University of Toronto in Canada, who led India's ambitious million death study. Let me go across to Dr. Leheria first. Dr. Leheria, how does a virus mutate into a more severe one that we are seeing with COVID-19, from Delta now to something being called as Delta Plus? Does it use a vulnerable, unprotected population to propagate faster?
Thanks, Maha. So what we need to remember that all these viruses, as long as they multiply in any population, they keep mutating. So the mutations are a normal phenomena in the virus. A few viruses have a proofreading mechanism which prevent or avoid mutation. The key thing to remember is that as long as virus is circulating, and the higher the circulation, the more the risk of mutations in those viruses. And that is the key challenge. So we know that till now there are 10 variants of concerns, and all variants of concern or variants of interest. 4 are variants of concern and 6 are variants of interest. All of these have multiple mutations. We get interested in them. They become variants of interest or variants of concern. Either they have a higher transmissibility or has an immune escape, which essentially means can infect the individual who have a prior immunity, or they result in a higher virulence, which means can cause severe disease. If any of these 3 factors are there, then it becomes a variant of concern. And there are 4 variants of concern: alpha, beta, gamma, and Delta.
Okay.
What we need to remember in the final part is that these mutations keep happening, and we are not concerned about every mutation. But what we are concerned, if any of those mutations results in higher chance of virulence, transmissibility, or immune escape.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And that's what we are seeing probably in Delta, which is why it's a variant of concern. Dr. Prabhat Jha, the phrase, no one is safe till everyone is safe, has that only been truly understood by the richer countries that prioritized vaccinations for their population, sometimes at the cost of other countries, when the variants started emerging? That is, when the variants of concern started emerging.
No, that has not been understood. And it's exactly as your previous speaker said, you cannot control variants until you control community transmission. And given the worldwide spread, it certainly means that if we're going to have a safe world, then the whole world needs to be vaccinated, at least all adults.
Yes.
And that strategy would mean trying to rapidly get ahead of the variants which are occurring in high transmission areas, such as in India. The key driver currently of variants is not the selection pressure that sometimes comes with vaccines, but is very much the widespread, uncontrolled transmission in the community. And in turn, that needs India to have far better data on where transmission is occurring and what are the variants.
Okay, but wouldn't vaccinations help under these circumstances also? I want to bring in Ashutosh Garg. Arresting a pandemic, Ashutosh Garg, is a race against time. We know that. We are still seeing hurdles in, if I can bring to, the fore now the question of intellectual property or patent waiver. More companies being allowed licenses to produce vaccines. Were we plain slow, and is India bearing a cost of it?
Thank you, Maha, for inviting me. I think let me just first address the issue of the equality or the inequality. You know, it's a very incredible situation that we are faced with. Those who have been vaccinated have been given a fighting chance, and as Mr. Abdullah Shahid said, 1 in 500 in the developing world hasn't even got a vaccine.
No.
I think that is what is important. These people have not even been given a chance to fight this whole vaccine. Whether vaccines are available, not available, I think these are all challenges that every country is faced with. And I do believe that in our country, with two manufacturers and with more people coming online, I think that we will be in a much better situation in June and in July. But I do also believe that Bharat Biotech, which is partially, or where the IP is partially owned by the government, the government could have possibly given the rights to some other manufacturing companies to be able to produce the vaccine. Having said that, I've said this several times, manufacturing vaccines is not like throwing a light switch that today you give me the rights and from tomorrow I start churning out vaccine which will meet all the requirements. It's a long process, but I'm glad it has been started now.
But Ashutosh Garg, we had time. We had 9 months where we could have looked at ramping up production once the research was done, once the trials were done. Did we lose out on that precious time?
I'm sure we did. I'm sure we did lose out on time. But again, I say that this pandemic is such a difficult problem that the entire world is facing. I urge all our political leaders on several of your debates that let's not get into postmortems. Postmortems you can do when you start going to elections. But let's all unite. Let's look forward. And now we are beginning to see, enough vaccine availability. We're beginning to see all segments of all age groups are beginning to get called for vaccination. So let's look ahead. Let's win this war and then let's talk about politicking and why you didn't do this and why. And I'm sure the politicians have already got their swords all sharpened for this one.
Dr. Leharia, vast populations in high-income countries are vaccinated, even double vaccinated. I mean, they have both the doses of vaccines. Countries like UK are even shortening the gap now and getting their populations covered quickly because of the variants. But low and middle-income countries are yet to, in some cases, even issue a single dose in some cases. And what Abdullah Shahid mentioned, 1 in 500 people have got a dose in the poorer countries. What threat does this pose for the world at this stage?
So what we need to remember that virus is everywhere in all parts of the world. And we know that this virus is not going anywhere. The world is in the mid of the pandemic. And we can come out of the pandemic only when every part of the world is safe. But what is really intriguing that in spite of knowing all of those things, that kind of vaccine inequity exists. We know that countries have vaccinated nearly 80% plus population with the 1 or 2 doses, and other countries are waiting. So that is something which world need to reflect, that while we keep saying all the right things and global leaders keep saying all the right things, but when it comes to implementation, it does not materialize. Just a few days ago, the G7 were talking about 1 billion shots for the donation, but we know that what world need is 11 billion shots. So while 1 billion shots sounds really good optics, but it is not enough for the world, and that's what we need to do. Unfortunately, we need to remember that we often keep saying international and global, but there is a difference in the two words. International essentially means you are still following your national boundary. But what world need global, where we think of an entire world as one unit. And there is no better opportunity than this pandemic, that you can, no country can be safe. And if this message there, it is intriguing, we need to reflect that why this is not being translated into sharing vaccine equitably, or at least for a reasonable proportion of population in the low and middle income countries.
Absolutely. Dr. Prabhat, countries and regions with the highest incomes are getting vaccinated more than 30 times faster than those with the lowest. We all understand that only a coordinated campaign can stop a pandemic. Then why are we failing in that coordination? Where are we lacking?
It's a global failure of leadership when the solution is so obvious. But I'd like to come back to what India could do. India does have not sufficient, but some vaccine supply, and it's really important to use it as best as it can. That in turn would demand much better information on where to vaccinate, which are the hot spots, which are the high-risk groups. In Ontario, Canada, where I live, we had exactly the same scenario. And we had to use data on where are the cases to identify where particular groups are at highest risk. And currently, the concern is to try to decrease the Delta variant. Yes. So double vaccination is being prioritized in some neighborhoods. In India, every person who gets a COVID test or gets a vaccine has their details recorded on the Aadhaar card or others. So the government knows the name, age, sex, PIN code of everyone tested or vaccinated. If it were to release those, or at least say that they were using them to identify hotspots, that's where you can use the limited vaccine supply most effectively to really try to decrease community transmission and hence decrease the occurrence of new variants. Without data, you cannot walk out of the pandemic, and India has been flying blind, unfortunately.
Dr. Prabhat, help me understand this better. You are saying that because vaccines are in limited numbers at the moment, using them strategically is important. But if you identify hotspots, then for them, tracing, testing, and then treating would be the option, right? Rather than vaccination. Am I correct?
No, not necessarily. Hotspots also mean that those are active community transmission. So in those places, you might have extra first dose vaccine clinics or mobile trucks.
All right.
In some places where sequencing can be done, if particularly they got high concentrations of the Delta variant, then the argument for having second dose vaccines in those populations or subpopulations is the case. So this is what the UK and Canada and others are learning. As you get better data and you can connect it to where are the geographic areas, vaccination plus the strategies that you mentioned, contact tracing, perhaps more local lockdowns are needed. But India being such a vast country with so much diversity really demands a lot of data to be available. Now, I would argue if the government is not willing to release these data, give the assurance to the Indian and the global public that they are using them in the ways that we've identified. This panel would all agree, I think, that they need to use the data and have the public confidence that they're basing decisions on science, not on guesswork, not on politics.
Ashutosh Garg, that's a very interesting point that Dr. Prabhat has made, because there have been a lot of questions about whether we have used our vaccines strategically well or not. There was an argument given that senior citizens were should be vaccinated first and were vaccinated first because they were the most vulnerable. But there were many who argued that it was the younger lot, the ones that were stepping out of their homes for work after lockdowns should have been vaccinated first, because the vulnerable could have been protected if those stepping out and those who could get the virus more quickly because they were stepping out were safe from the virus. Do you think strategy-wise as well in vaccination, we need to rethink?
You know, as far as the vaccination by age groups are concerned,
having maps as to where the enemy is, and so having much
Dr.
better
Prabhat,
data and trying things and seeing what would work is part of the war against COVID. Now, I do believe the strategy of protecting the older population is still an appropriate one because they have the highest death rates. But as vaccine supply can be increased, and I know there's a lot of pressure to do so, then thinking strategically is important. An absolute non-starter is the fact that India, in some parts, charges for the vaccine. That's just wrong. It's immoral, and vaccines should be free to everyone in India. India can afford that amount of expenditure on vaccines, and it absolutely should be free. There should be no financial barriers for anyone accessing this life-saving technology.
All right. Ashutosh Garg, you want to come in now?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple of points. I think Dr. Jha has made some fairly sweeping comments that the government doesn't use any data. I think that's completely incorrect. I think from the 21st of June, we are very clear that 75% of the vaccines will be completely free of charge, and I'm sure there would be options to look at something else. But having said all this, I think what is most important is not just the vaccination, which is critical, of course, but we are just coming, I'm hoping, to the end of our second phase. And, you know, every one of us, let's not just blame the government, every one of us is as responsible. And I'm already beginning to see that the people are out and the traffic jams have started, the markets are full, masks are missing. I mean, if we are not going to be careful ourselves, then how can you blame anybody else? I mean, we know that the government is talking of taking it to 10 million doses of shots every day, but even that will take us up to 31st of December, and we cannot blame anybody but ourselves if we end up with a third wave. We can't blame variants. We can't blame. Let's just wash our hands. Let's cover our, use our masks and keep social distance. I mean, these are the three.
People clearly need to be more responsible. Yes, the shocking visuals that we've seen of malls being packed with people, there's no social distancing. Some are even not doing the basics like wearing a mask. I think that is totally criminal at this stage. I have the last 1 minute. I want to go back to Dr. Laharia. Dr. Laharia, today the Health Ministry said that the Delta Plus variant so far is not one of concern in India. It's one of interest because there are only 6 cases. Help us understand the difference quickly, and how serious should the Health Ministry be about the Delta Plus variant?
So what we need to remember that Delta Plus variant has one additional mutation in the Delta variant, and that mutation was also found in Beta variant a few months earlier. So one additional mutation does not itself mean it is more severe. So we don't know yet that whether it is the additional mutation will result in additional transmissibility, immune escape, or higher severity. So there is no such sign. What we also need to remember that this variant has been reported from at least 10 other countries, and this is early sign. So every new mutation should not be a reason for a concern immediately unless it's proven otherwise.
Okay.
But what we need to remember that we could identify, the world could identify this new mutation because of effective or timely genomic surveillance. So genomic sequencing need to be strengthened, and that's one more message coming, that because there are new mutations, new variants which are coming, so immediately this is definitely not a concern.
All right.
But it needs to be watched. The genomic sequencing need to be stepped up.
All right. Dr. Laharia, Ashutosh Garg and Dr. Prabhat, all three of you, many thanks for joining us here on the show this evening. Now, ahead of the World Test Championships, CNN News 18's Shivani Gupta spoke exclusively with cricket legend Sachin Tendulkar. He says India is not the underdog.
First of all, Sachin, thanks a lot for talking to CNN News 18. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you again after a very long time. We are here talking about the World Test Championship final. Everybody considers India to be the underdogs. Would you agree with that, and why?
No, I totally disagree. I think we've played some terrific cricket to get here. And, you just take Australian tour's example. Almost 10, 11 players were not available. And the guys who were on the bench, they were asked to play. And to the extent where a couple of them were actually practice bowlers, they ended up playing on that tour and they delivered. So that speaks volumes of our strength, how we've been able to, deliver that knockout punch in Brisbane has been truly remarkable. So by no means I would say that, we are underdogs and, yes, we haven't had enough match practice. New Zealand have had the best preparation possibly, 2 test series before this game. But that's how the game is. So we have to accept what has come our way, and we've prepared to the best of our ability. So I would focus on what one needs to do in the next step, and not worry about what people are thinking or that, because I don't think that's true. That's right.
WTC final preview, Sachin Tendulkar exclusive on Wednesday at 6:27 p.m. Taking a very quick break now. News and updates will continue. Stay with us.